Welcome to the Gen X Experience, the podcast that celebrates the unique journey of 80s kids navigating midlife. I'm your host, Blythe Alperin. Each episode, my guests and I will share with you the unique differences that define our generation and how we are navigating those differences in the real world. Join me for laughs, insights, and a sense of community. Let's embrace the Gen X Experience together. Welcome back to a very chill, casual episode of the Gen X Experience. We are on episode 30 and finishing up our series on ageism. I hope you've enjoyed the last two podcasts featuring Lib Abushan and Craig Zamboni, both very interesting guests with unique perspectives, and I enjoyed speaking with both of them. It was really fun. I really enjoy speaking to Gen Xers. It's just so fun to speak to my fellow members of our generation, scrappy slackers, and hear the commonalities we have, the similar ideas, and also just the unique perspectives. So thank you to Lib and Craig, and to anyone who's been a guest on the Gen X Experience, and to thank you to the listeners. Today, I thought we'd have a quick little episode before I get ready for the long weekend. You will be hearing this and watching this after the long weekend. But I couldn't let May go by. I almost said June. I couldn't let May go by without a solo episode. So let's talk about ageism when we were younger. Remember the movie, one of my favorite movies, The Secret of My Success, when Michael J. Fox's character is like trying to get a job in the big city, and he's going around to like all these different offices, and basically they're like, you don't have any experience. And he's like, well, I need a job to get experience. And that was kind of the things that you face as you're younger. You know, most Gen Xers had like summer jobs or after school jobs, and those were retail or fast food. If you were me, I didn't have an after school job. My parents informed my siblings and I that our job was to get good grades. That didn't mean to do nothing when I got home because we were making dinner and all the things. But if we didn't have after school activities, but my summers were spent at my dad's office, which was a blessing and a curse. It was kind of fun because I would get to see some of my, friends would come in. And it was also a curse because working in people's mouths, I give my dad all the credit, and my mom, like, I'm sorry, some people would just come into my dad's office with the most disgusting, dirty mouths, and there were toothbrushes. It was nasty. And that was my summers. And then, when OSHA regulations came around, like, it upped the ante of like glasses and mask and gloves. It was just even more. So imagine being a teenager and like, say your crush comes in to your dad's office and you look like like a scary scientist. You don't look cool. But it taught me a lot. It taught me the value of hard work and running your business, but it also made it hard for my sister and I don't think my brother experienced this, to get a job, because I'd have people like when I was in grad school trying to, work part-time jobs, and they'd be like, but you don't have any experience. I'm like, I worked in my dad's office. And they're like, yeah. I'm like, no, I was there at like 8, left sometimes at 6, ran the front desk, worked in the back, did everything, developed x-rays, all that kind of stuff. It was not a cakewalk. And it was hard convincing some people. And I found it really rude. I would get so annoyed. I think one time I told one of those temp agencies, I'm like, this is the hardest job I've ever had and will ever have. And the fact that you're dismissing it is kind of crap, because if they would have given me a typing test, I did better than like most people. Granted, as Gen Xers, we had typing class with typewriters, right? Remember that? So yeah, it became a challenge, getting a job after college sometimes, or if you didn't go to college, after high school, trying to get a job that maybe you saw yourself as a career, maybe it was just temporary, or maybe you were in school and were working part-time, and sometimes you were literally dismissed because you didn't have experience. And especially if you're trying to get a job in your field and, to test out whether you like it, to see, make some contacts, and they're like, yeah, come back when you have experience. And then if you did come back with other jobs, they were like, you still don't have experience, which is insane because when you go to college and then you get a degree, of course you don't have like working experience, but you have knowledge of your field. And that's why there was internships, although when we were doing internships, they were unpaid. And I think now that has changed, which I think is a good thing because the way they work interns is a little insane, at least in advertising. So it was a struggle. We didn't have, the cool music playing in the background on our job search, like in The Secret of My Success. Everybody remember the limo scenes, like boom, boom, boom. Like I'm not going to sing, but can you think of the song? I think they also used it in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. So it wasn't, being young is great, right? You can act a fool. It's an experimental time, but it's also a challenging, confusing time because you're trying to become an adult and have redult, that's not even a word, have adult responsibilities. Quick aside, I have noticed lately, I feel like I'm becoming my mom. No offense, mom. Today, actually, it would have been her birthday. But I'm combining words. Like, the reason I said redult is because I was saying adult responsibilities, not English. Anyway, back to my point. You're trying to take on adult responsibilities. You might be paying rent, you have an apartment, you have to buy all the things. When you start to learn, like, wait, toilet paper costs this much, groceries are this much, I need all this stuff to function. It's not just there like it was when you were, a kid in your parents' house. And, when you're trying to do all these things and the world is just telling you, no, you need experience. No, you're too young. Or they give you a salary and you're like, how am I supposed to live in a box on the street? Or you have 20 roommates. Now, granted, when we were young, at least in my opinion, you kind of had that expectation that either you were going to be living in a really small apartment or you were going to have a roommate or roommates. And it wasn't something that we looked down on. It was just we had that expectation. And some of us preferred roommates because it meant that you could enjoy life and that even if you were squished in an apartment, you had the basic necessities, but you could go out and have fun, which is what you want to do in your 20s. And then you start to grow up and you get the experience and you're trying to move around jobs because staying in a place forever was no longer really a thing when we were, in the corporate world. The dot-com bubble burst, which affected us. We faced recessions. I know millennials and Gen Z not all of them, seem to forget that they're not the only people affected by things. Maybe one day I can get the younger generation on here because I'd like to have a conversation about what they think about Gen X, why they are starting up this generational warfare. And I get when you're young, like you're angry about things that the older generations have done and things you have to just endure because that's the way it is. And you try to make changes, but there should still be some level of respect and understanding. And I think the challenge that we have now, I know this is a little aside, is that we're not talking to each other and we're not trying to understand other people's perspectives, because people who are saying, like, boomers, they're just holding on to things, a lot of them because they can't afford to retire. They took up all the houses. Well, if they sell their house, they can't afford to buy something else. Saying they have no empathy, they've never been through stuff, which is not true. Every generation has been through things. At the same time, you have boomers being like, don't get what younger generations are going through. Like, we seem to forget what that's saying, in The Breakfast Club. Ali Sheedy's character, you don't want to grow up to be like your parents because when you get older, your heart dies. I hope that doesn't continue to be the case, but it would be interesting to talk to younger generations about what it's like out there and why they don't seem to want to learn from the older generations. Not all of them, again, but why they think they know everything. They also are having trouble in the workforce because they have not great communication skills. They don't want to work the long hours. They don't want to not get paid. They don't really want to pay their dues. And I think there has to be a balance, because we've all, if you're a Gen Xer, you paid your dues. You worked long hours, you stayed late, you sacrificed your life because you thought it would help you get ahead. Sometimes it did. Most of the time it didn't. And especially as someone who worked in advertising, I always thought it was hilarious that they're like, do all these things and feed your creative, mind, your creative soul. And then you're working long hours, weekends, nights, etc. Like, how am I supposed to feed my creativity when all I do is work? Which I did in my first job, and I gave myself an ulcer because I loved it. I was having the best time, but it wasn't a healthy environment. Well, we were all young and dumb and crazy and stupid, but it was hilarious and fun till it wasn't. But I think that's the thing too, right? We paid our dues, and then we realized it's not worth it. We're not getting anything out of it. We're still struggling, and now we have to get another job because of maybe a recession or layoffs or whatever. And the reason we have to get another job is because even if it's like a sideways move instead of an up move, is because we're not getting, like, our company won't pay us any more money. They might give us more responsibility, but no raise, or they give you the standard, cost of living raise. Or you started to realize, okay, I should have done something else. I feel that way. As much as I love advertising, because I love being creative, I love writing, I love coming up with ideas. This job is hard, not always rewarding. There's a lot of nonsense involved. It's not stable. And sometimes you deal with personalities who are hacks, who are not nice, who, stepping on people, who will sleep with people to get ahead. I know a few of those. I would leave those names out, but they should not be in the positions they are because they don't have talent except for knowing who to, Anyway, let's get out of that. But we saw these things, right? We saw what corporate culture was like when we were young. We worked hard to try and change it, but also sometimes we just had to suck it up. And I think we're still having to somewhat suck it up nowadays. And it's frustrating because, you're dismissed when you're young as not having experience. Now we have experience and we've worked hard and we've had to evolve, a lot of us, with computers and internet and phones and technology. And it's still not good enough. We're still not getting what we deserve. We're still not getting appreciated. We're being tossed out for younger, cheaper models. Our value is being dismissed at a time when we should be at the prime of our career. We should be the managers and the people in charge, and we should be getting paid what we're worth. Like, we should be looking towards retirement and being like, okay, I'm getting there. I'm going to have the money. Like, I still have plenty of time, and I can enjoy my life, and I can raise my kids, and I can send them to college, and, I can afford vacations. And it's not that way for everybody, right? Some people are doing fine. Some people aren't. Some people are, which is the nature of, I think, adulting, and is the nature of our country. But, yeah. Why am I feeling? I'm feeling like this topic is getting me low. But I will say, let's talk about, the fun things, like the great things about ageism. That sounds weird. But what I mean is, when you're young and you're coming into work and there's other people your age and you can commiserate and band together and share your challenges and share your successes and make friends and, like, go out. Like, my first agency job, like I said, we were young and crazy and sometimes stupid and silly, but we all hung out together and had a great time, and we're learning from each other, like, about different music and different things. And it was a time in my life that I miss. It was a very different time. I know we all say this, but the agency world, if any of you are curious, if you've ever watched TV shows where they show advertising, most of the time they get it wrong. One, nobody's wearing a suit. Two, account people are not also doing the creative. I think the show that did it the best, besides Mad Men, was 30 something, because they really were showing what an agency felt like. But they used to be fun. My agency that I worked at, we had, like, green carpets, and I'm like, neon colors. Our colors were like neon green and neon purple. There was techno music. Our whole music was techno music. Our the music in the bathroom was techno. There was different kinds of music coming out of every cubicle. People running around in scooters. Everyone's cubicle was, like, very interestingly and fun decorated, reflected their personality and things that they liked. There was inappropriateness going on. There was curse words. I worked at this agency in Chicago at the time when the Budweiser commercial, like, what's up? And we would hear that occasionally. We would also hear over a loudspeaker system every Friday. We'd hear the sound of from Friday. It's Friday. You ain't got no job. Want to get you laid. We would just, inappropriate things were said over the intercom. There was a guy that I worked with. His last name is Cook, but it's spelled Koch. And somebody was trying to get his attention and was like, Bradley Cock. And because we were all so mature, you literally heard, I think we were on the 24th floor, or I was on the 24th floor. You heard laughter just kind of sweeping over the floor. And then people would be like, they started calling him Bradley Cock over the loudspeaker. So you can tell how mature they are. I don't know if you listen to this, but if you do, hi. We're still friends on Facebook. I haven't seen him in a very long time. Lovely, amazing, talented guy. But yeah, it was just stuff like that I kind of miss from my 20s. And because you start to grow up and you realize you cannot act that way. And then you get sucked into the corporate culture and you're just like, this is not what I thought working was going to be like. The movies lied, the TV shows lied. This kind of sucks, but I need money. And then you have to figure out, are you working to live or living to work? And can you work to live? So I don't know. Food for thought, things to ponder. Things to ponder. I don't know if I would go back to my 20s now. Maybe if it was the same time. But I do wonder what it's like for, 20-year-olds coming into the corporate world. It's a very different world from where we started. And things are hard. The interviewing process is ridiculous. The behavior from companies, recruiters, HR, not all of them, again, is very unprofessional. You don't ghost candidates. You don't ignore people. It's not cool. You don't have them do 4 or 5 rounds of interviews and then just nothing. You also do not have senior people doing free work for you. I don't think junior people should be either. This happens at advertising agencies a lot, in other creative industries, and sometimes your work is stolen. So you're giving them free ideas. Not cool. Ethics. Anyway, I don't know what else to say. And we're like 17 minutes. I just want to do a short, touch point. Whatever I'm saying. The brain frog. Brain fog is real. I hope you're all enjoying listening or watching me. I have trouble speaking English. The connection sometimes between my brain and my mouth doesn't always work. Part of it is menopause, perimenopause. And yes, I am going to blame everything. And I'll say one last thing before we'll sign off. But if you are a perimenopausal or menopausal Gen Xer, I highly recommend going on social media, Instagram or TikTok, and looking up that We Do Not Care. There's a lady she's in West Palm Beach who started this, and it's hilarious because she'll put like a napkin that says We Do Not Care Club, and she attaches it with paper clips, and every day she's like, we do not care about this, we do not care about that, and then people will list in the comments things that they don't care about. So it's a nice little group. I kind of want to have her on the podcast sometime, so stay tuned for that. Anyway, I hope you had a lovely Memorial Day weekend if you have a long weekend where you are in the States. And next month, we are going to be doing sibling chat and only children chat. If you would like to be on the podcast, you can reach out to me. Don't forget, we are again on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. Stay up to date with me on in the podcast on Instagram, the Gen X Pod, the Gen X Experience Pod. I do know the name of my podcast. And again, thank you for listening, watching, tuning in, wherever platform you are. And let's keep this conversation going about being a Gen Xer, and let's keep this community growing. And with that, my fellow Gen Xers, I'm going to sign off the way I do every time with one caveat. Wherever you are, Mom, I hope you're listening, and happy birthday. I hope Dad remembers. Until next time, don't you forget about me, because I won't forget about you. Thank you for taking the time to listen to the Gen X Experience. If today's episode resonated with you, please consider sharing it on social media or with a friend. We'll see you back here next time.